Good morning, friends. Welcome to another Field Trip Friday. My name's Steve.
And I'm Tanika. Good morning, everyone. So today we are really excited because we're visiting, our own home base, right? So we're going to be at the Magic Wings Butterfly House right at the Museum of Life and Science. So today with us, we have Dr. Uli, who is the Butterfly's house director. And we also have the pleasure of hosting a DPS classroom every single Friday as well. So today we have Miss Williams and Miss Holloway from Spring Valley Elementary School. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Spring Valley.
And we also have Miss Nowak's fourth grade class from Parkwood Elementary. Good morning.
Good morning, Parkwood. Thank you for being here.
All fourth graders. That's my favorite grade.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're second.
No worries. We love second graders too.
You guys are awesome too.
All right. Cool. So I want to remind everybody that during the video, which we're going to play in just a minute, you're welcome to chat questions to us. We'll get a chance to answer some of those questions either live in the chat, or we'll talk about them after the video live with Uli and in our classrooms. So enjoy the video. This was super fun. Like Tanika mentioned, this is kind of nice, being on, home ground and really getting to know some of the people that we work with a lot. And so I look really forward to showing you this. Let's get this started. Hi everyone, welcome to another Field Trip Friday. My name's Steve.
And I'm Tanika.
Where are we going today, Tanika?
So today we are at Magic Wings Butterfly House on the campus of the Museum of Life and Science.
We're right here at home.
Yeah, it feels great to be home.
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait to meet all the people who work here at the Butterfly House and see what they do.
Yeah.
It'll be cool. Let's go, friends.
Okay, I'd like to welcome you to the Magic Wings Butterfly House from the Museum of Life and Science here in Durham, North Carolina. I'm John Willard. I'm a volunteer here in the Butterfly House. I've been volunteering since the Butterfly House was open. Okay, we just received a shipment of chrysalises from a butterfly farm in Suriname. Suriname is a small country on the northern coast of South America. We get all of our butterflies for Magic Wings Butterfly House from butterfly farms around the tropical world, to include several in Central and South America, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Kenya and East Africa. And like I said, today they arrived from a butterfly farm in Suriname. So we unpack them from their shipping containers. As we're doing that, we check to see that they're healthy. Sometimes they might emerge in transit, which is not a good thing, but it does happen. So they are, normally they're pretty easy to handle. You have to handle them gingerly. If I wanted to, I could squish them. And particularly if you get some that are if a shipment gets delayed, for instance, en route, and there's some that are really ready to come out, then the outside of the chrysalis gets very soft. And then you have to be particularly careful.
How long have you been doing this work, John?
Since the butterfly house opened, I've been volunteering doing this for 22 years.
That is awesome. Cool. So Uli, can you tell us who you are and what you do here?
Yes, I'm Uli Hartmann, and I am the director of the Butterfly House. Means I can take care of, do everything, be in charge of the entire exhibit that you see around us, including that 1 acre of gardens that we have here.
Absolutely. Yeah, the gardens are amazing. I love it out there. So what do you find yourself kind of doing on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, that really means doing pretty much anything that needs doing. Supporting my staff, my team, talking to our guests when they come in, supporting our other teams in the museum that need to talk to us or need some of our animals, because we also have a bunch of animals in Insectarium that are program animals that go to school programs. So we can check them out and get a teacher to come with an invertebrate to your classroom. I can do that too. I sometimes have to step in for that as well. And of course, there's all the administrative stuff that as a director you have to do. Keep an eye on the budget and the bills and making sure the air conditioning still runs, calling the techs in whenever you need to. Now again, these are tropical butterflies. They will not leave this building. They're considered a plant pest that we imported. So unlike a wedding butterfly release of monarchs that are home to all 50 states plus a few more, these cannot go outside.
Hey, Bob Joe, thanks for having us in here. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do here?
Yeah, my name is Bobby Joe. I'm the manager of horticulture here at Magic Wings Butterfly House. So you're in my work area. In the Butterfly House here, I take care of the tropical plants inside the conservatory, making sure all the butterflies and the birds are happy that we have here, and make sure the visitors have lots to see and feel like they're fully immersed inside a rainforest where a lot of our tropical butterflies are from.
So can you tell us a little bit about the plants that we see in here and maybe how they came to be inside the butterfly house?
Sure. So all of our butterflies are tropical species, and we mimic the environment that they're native to. So all these are naturally tropical plants. A lot of our sources come from Florida, where it's semi-tropical.
As a horticulturalist, what are some of the things that you consider when you're thinking about plant placement or kind of just plant organization? When you come into this space, what are the things that catch your eye and you're like, I need to take care of that, I need to fix this, what things happen for you?
Well, most people don't realize, but the butterfly conservatory here is broken into sections. When you first come in, and this whole front section here is our food and spice area. So we have over 45 different types of edible plants in the conservatory, and they're mainly up in this area. As you come around, we have a lot of our ferns and cycads down in this middle section, and the lower end, which is our south side, is where we kind of congregate all of our flowering plants. So all the nectar sources for our butterflies to feed on. Then you come up along this wall here is our rainforest area. So we trying to mimic the different layers of the rainforest where the butterflies are native.
That's awesome.
I also manage the outside gardens around the butterfly house and up to the cafe area. So lots of plants.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gotten to hang out in the teaching garden that you raised a lot of really beautiful plants in there.
Oh yes, we try to work with our citizen science projects on that, and if we don't do that, I fill in kind of whatever I want, something of interest all the time.
That's cool. Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
My name is Lou Menano, and I am a horticulturalist at the Museum of Life and Science. So I take care of the plants inside the conservatory and outside the building, around the perimeter of the building. So sometimes we have weddings, so we got to keep a nicer area outside as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have to kind of get to know each of these plants, or can you kind of, I guess what I'm saying is, do you have to treat each one of them kind of differently and know how to cut them, know how to grow them, know how to kind of care for them? Do they need different soil requirements?
Yeah, so the plants grow in different ways. Some of them, like this vine behind us, what I was doing earlier today was up on a ladder. I was trimming. The vine was climbing up the tree, so I had to train it down so it's not suffocating the tree so much. Some plants get infestations, like called mealybugs, and we gotta make sure we gotta cut them out, but not all the plants get them. So you kind of know which ones do, which ones that you have to focus on for cutting things back.
Can you tell us who you are and what you do here, man?
Okay, yes, my name is Leon Bradford, and I'm the Insectarium manager. Although they keep me back here, you know, I'm really out there a lot. Just maybe hour a day, you know, prepping, you know, opening, cleaning, a little bit of house cleaning, making sure that the invertebrates are well. So it's like a morning checkup.
Absolutely. I just saw you cutting up these like fruits and vegetables. Are those going to be diet for some of the?
Yeah, you know, they actually eat better than we do. Most of the stuff is organic, has to be peeled. And then you go to the grocery stores, I guess people touch a lot of bacteria and no telling, you know, what else is on the fruit. So we usually just peel to make sure. Yeah. And it helps. Yeah.
Yeah, because I can imagine some of these invertebrates, they would be obviously sensitive to pesticides or other things, chemicals that people might have in their lotions and all the stuff that they
perfumes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you spent some time back here, a lot of time out there. What do you spend your time doing in a given day?
Most of it is husbandry, meaning to take care of. So you do a check, you check to make sure the invertebrates are well. But you also have to do a little bit of house cleaning. You notice some of I was over here this morning, just a little bit of cleaning, making sure you get the leaves up. Because if it's clean, you can see what's going on.
Right.
Okay. And feeding. You have to give them a proper diet. This time of year is a little tricky because everything's new. Chemically speaking, in plants, some of the compounds may be a little too strong for the stick insects and stuff like that. So you gotta watch what you give them until you get them on that perfect diet. When we do the husbandry means I look at this, I say, well, I have to check her out to make sure she's okay. You know. So sometimes in the middle of the night they can hurt themselves. Doesn't take much. And you look inside the container, still has water. Moist on one side, dry on the other. And this animal is probably 12 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you mind if I pick her up?
Oh yeah, sure.
We don't tell this conservation message very strongly. We don't do conservation right here on site in the same sense that most people believe conservation or what conservation is. We don't protect with huge investments in research. The lions are like Sherry in our animal department here at the museum, the red wolves. Our biggest contribution to that is our messaging, and then also our investment into these breeders that produce these butterflies. And you heard the story of how our butterflies came in, how we post them, how we hang them in, and they just live here as an adult. The other stages all happen in the tropics. Well, our 5-6 breeders that we use, they are big groups of many, many families that live off the production of these pupae, and those are the true conservation heroes.
Right, and so the conservation effort is more a kind of an ambassadorship here, and then also an investment in conservation efforts that are happening in these tropical locations.
Well said, yes, thank you, Steve.
Cool. That was so cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing some behind the scenes parts of the butterfly house that I really don't get to visit a lot.
Absolutely, and I've known many of those people for many years, but even still, I learn new things about them all the time, and kind of ways that they care about the environment and the museum and the work that they do here, and it was so fun just getting to know them better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you in the live Q&A, where we'll get to talk to some of these folks that we met today and ask them all sorts of cool questions. See you there, friends. That was so fun. I love the butterfly house so much.
I really enjoy it. We have a lot of really good questions happening in the chat. Like students, you all have really good interest in what you noticed in the video. So we're going to turn it over to Ms. Williams, Ms. Holloway, and Ms. Nowak. If you all want to go through and read some of the questions from your students, we're sure Uli will try his best to answer them.
One of the first questions I have is one of the students wanted to know, how do you make sure that they're healthy, especially if the baby butterflies, and how many cages do you keep for them?
First of all, hello, guys. And some of these answers, hopefully, that I saw in the chat pop up are explained by the video itself. Let me see if I can add a few more answers. So we're getting these butterflies from farms, and those farmers pretty much know what a healthy pupa looks like. Pupa, chrysalis, exchangeable in this case, as terms go. They sort them, they don't put them in a package if they are sort of discolored or have some kind of blemishes or even little holes that indicate that a parasitoid, some little wasp or so, has laid its eggs in there. So when we get them, we pretty much can be assured that they're fairly healthy. It doesn't mean that they may have eaten something as baby, as the caterpillar, that is not perfectly nutritional, or they didn't get as much food as they wanted. So they may be a little weaker when they emerge. And there again, we sort of sort out the ones that are not strong enough to fly and they stay in the back room, or the ones that are come out crumpled, the wings don't unfold, they cannot fly, so they will not find food. So we bring them not into the conservatory. The second question that you had or attached was, can you repeat that, please?
I had a question about, like, how, I guess they thought it was cages. I think it's the actual butterfly houses. How many do you keep at a time, I guess, is more of the better question.
Okay. We are getting about 500 butterflies every week as a pupa goes. And then 90% of them emerge properly and will fly in our conservatory. So that back room that you saw John working in is only their hatching room. And most of you probably have been to the butterfly house and know our facility to some degree. And they will be released into that big enclosure by taking them in a little cage out there, but then they're free to fly. So in that conservatory, anywhere from 800-900 butterflies to 1,000 should be flying around or sitting in there and living in there. And
yeah,
just
that's a lot of butterflies.
Yeah, I saw that question. That is a lot of butterflies. We keep, of course, many more bugs, like we have at least thousands of roaches all the time on hand, and ants and everything else in the back room that Leon is usually working with.
Yeah, there's so many different species, and then some of those species have thousands of individuals in them, like those colony species, like mentioned, Uli mentioned with the ants. And then if you've gotten to see our cave cockroaches, there's so many of them, like all over, and our Madagascar hissing cockroaches, and yeah, they're really, really fun and fascinating to observe. And so I hope you all have a chance to come and visit and see them for yourselves.
To kind of build on that, I think somebody asked about bees, and that's one of the other insects that we have as well. So we have tons of bees as well, and you can really see them on display inside the Insectarium.
Yeah, I love that colony because they can go outside to go forage for nectar and pollen, and then they can come back, and you can see them kind of nesting in their hive box, which has plexiglass, so you can actually see them. And sometimes you can like listen to them, you can hear them buzzing, and you can feel the warmth that's actually produced from all of them buzzing around and flying next to each other. It's really cool.
And one of my students asked, how can you tell the difference between the monarch and the other butterflies?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, what's the difference between monarchs and these butterflies that we see in the butterfly house? Great question.
Well, monarchs are regular one species of butterflies, and we have about usually 30, 40 different ones in the conservatory out of maybe 10,000 species of butterflies that live around the world. 175 of those species live in North Carolina. The monarch is one of those special butterflies that migrates. So the only difference to a normal or our butterflies is that they live in the tropics only maybe for a few winter months, and then they come here and live in the US. So it's a native species that we usually don't buy because they live in our outside gardens, or at least pass through our outside gardens through part of the year, in the spring and maybe in the fall, back going down to Mexico or Florida.
Super cool. I think one of the wildest things about that migration is that, we see the birds migrating all the time, but that's the same individual bird will migrate from north to south, but monarchs will actually migrate across their generations. They'll have multiple generations of butterfly across their migration sometimes. And that's like a super fascinating piece for scientists, is how do monarchs know where they're going, even though they've never been there in some cases? It's really, really a wild question. Cool species. And thank you, Uli. Yeah, what other questions? There were so many good, curious questions. Thank you, friends, for all your observations and curiosities.
I had a second grade fun fact question that they thought of ahead of time. And they were thinking about, we talk about growth mindset. So they were thinking about the brain, and they figured, well, okay, then all creatures have brains. So how big would the butterfly brain be with it being such a small insect?
Well, it is really teeny, no question. There's a researcher at Duke University, Professor Nijholt, and he has done a lot of research in butterflies' brains, has teased them out. So I saw one of his images or under the microscope. It's not as big as a pinhead. It's really tiny, and it doesn't have too many active regions, but it's the steering mechanism for all the activity of the butterfly, the reproductive processes, and of course, as Steve pointed out here, the monarch's direction giving compass, so to speak, to give them a way to go down south and find their way back up all the way to Canada.
Yeah,
it's really teeny.
Yeah, and I mean, it's amazing what you can do. Like, I mean, we of course, have our big human brains, and whales have their big whale brains, and but there are loads of animals that are very small and still do incredibly amazing things, like butterflies. And it's kind of really special to think about how all these different systems have evolved in all sorts of different ways and still do incredibly amazing things. Like I often think about, we had our squirrel episode, and I was thinking about how incredible those squirrels are, and they're really tiny. They have much smaller brains, but they have really sophisticated behaviors. And same with butterflies, except in even higher scale, right? They're like super tiny brains and still doing amazing things, like flying across entire continents. It's crazy.
There's so many questions popping up in the chat here that I'm not sure we can get all the answers to. Yes, butterflies walk, they have eyes, the antennas are some other ways to feel. They their way around the world and sense some of the chemicals in the area to find their food. Butterflies do get about hours, 2 or 3 weeks old before they expires, and when they die, we will maybe find them and put them in a freezer, and then we can give them away for you to inspect and work with in an art project or in a biology project. The monarch, back to that, why is it so special? The older generation, the one generation of winter can get up to 6 or 8 months, but for the most part, the adult is only 2, 3, 4 weeks. Our local species are in that range, but that's only the adult stage. Don't forget, they're all babies as caterpillars. They're pupae for 2, 3 weeks. Some of them overwinter as a pupae, so that's 6 months, all or 4 months there added on. So anywhere from 2 to 6, 8 months is the whole life cycle of a butterfly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the most fascinating things about butterflies and other insects is they often have these really sophisticated life cycles where they actually have different life stages where they're radically different organisms, essentially. Like a caterpillar you would see out like munching on a leaf is going to become an adult moth or butterfly, but right now they look completely different, and then they're going to go into their chrysalis or into to this pupal stage, and then they emerge as adults. And then they restart that life cycle by laying eggs, and those eggs hatch into caterpillars. Really wild life cycle. If you haven't learned about the life cycle of moths and butterflies and other insects too, it's really, really incredible.
We kind of staying on that same little wavelength. I think Amina asked a really good question. She asked, so what if the butterflies mate? Won't there be babies that make more chrysalises? And she's like, wouldn't it be chrysalises all over the garden? Do you have a specific place for that? I think she asked a really good question, kind of about the life cycle actually within the butterfly house.
That is cool.
So basically, yes, is the answer. They will mate. In our exhibit, you see them sometimes. And for the second grader, that might be hard to explain first thing, but fourth graders may understand the process. Yes, they will mate. We have males and females coming out. We often do not know which one is what. A lot of our species are the same color, male or female, or the same pattern. Some are distinctly different, so you can't tell easily without a microscope. But once they mate, they will try to lay eggs. The female always will find a plant that its babies, its caterpillars, that is, will like to eat. And we do not have those plants in a conservatory, or we would have no plants in the conservatory. So that's by intentional. We avoid that in our case. In the butterfly farms, however, yes, they do that. They provide exactly the right plant, and they're very picky. It's only usually 1 or 2 different species of plants that a species of butterfly wants to feed on. They provide that food to them intentionally, and that's how they produce so many that they can actually sell some to us.
That's such a cool piece of the butterfly kind of life cycle, is how they are, as Uli mentioned, they're so specific in their host plants that they want to eat as caterpillars, and therefore the adults seek out to lay their eggs on so that the caterpillars will emerge on a food source for that species. Super cool. And it's kind of interesting how then Uli and his team can use that fact about those butterflies to kind of maintain the space as the conservatory without getting chrysalises everywhere. That was such a good question, such an insightful question. Great observation and thinking on that.
So how do you feed them was one of the questions I see just now here. Of course, they feed themselves, and we only have to feed the adults in our exhibit. So that's going back to those host plants for the babies, for the caterpillars. And the adults usually feed nectar from flowers, except if you come to see our exhibit, you always find some trays that look sometimes pretty icky because it's rotting fruit on them. And that's what some of the adult species of the tropical species like to eat. Local, some species will sip on salt deposits or even feces on the floor, on the ground, because that has minerals in them that they can take nutrients from. So you'll find some of them on bird poop or so, if you look carefully. How many plants do we have? Again, back to that, they're not here as feeder plants. We just want to have a lot of plants that flower. And of course, provide that backdrop that kind of gives you a nice immersive experience of being in the jungle that it would normally, that these butterflies would normally find themselves in. 200 species about of plants, hundreds more, because with a lot of plants of certain species that have flowers. And that's what's in that conservatory. That's what Bobby Joe is taking care of in Lewis.
Yeah, there's so much work. I see that entire team, Mackenzie and Richard and Uli and Leon and Bobby Joe, all. I see them out and about, like managing so many different things. Of course, the horticulturalists do a lot of the kind of plant work, but I see everybody kind of working together to do so much work in that space, keeping it nice and beautiful and well maintained for all these different animal species, as well as as much as I can imagine as a tropical ecosystem as we can produce in an artificial system. It's pretty cool.
And yes, it's hot in there. At least if you come outside in the winter and come in with a big jacket on, but it's only about 80 degrees. So for those people that come in the summer, you will actually be surprisingly cool inside, but that's the temperature the butterflies really like. And it's just steady at 80% humidity that might upset you, or your systems a little bit, or your hair in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Tanika. Yeah.
Thanks. And so there've been a lot of questions about the Insectarium. Even though we didn't focus a lot on that, there are a lot of interesting insects inside the Insectarium. But one particular question keeps asking about the beetle, and I cannot remember the name of the large beetle that we have right there in the Insectarium.
It's the rhinoceros beetle, most likely, since you were here just a little ago, and we had some really fascinating other two species over the winter. But now we have a rhinoceros beetle. That's our big one that has these big horns, two on its shoulder and one on its nose that it can kind of clamp on your finger if you're not careful. And it has these really interesting claws that, like fish hooks, can hook into anything. And he's on exhibit now fighting with an orchid at this moment, actually. That's what Bobby Joe was coming in for.
Oh, that's fun. Cool. Well, I want to say thank you to all of our students for asking such incredible questions. This has been a really awesome Q&A. Thank you so much, Uli, for answering in such depth and such breadth all of the just amazing information there is to learn. Students, if we didn't get to your question in this Q&A, it's still a great question, and you should continue to seek the answers. Maybe someday you can come to the Butterfly House and ask Uli yourself. We hope to see you sometime soon. We're starting to turn the corner, and I hope we can have field trips with y'all again soon. So in the meantime, stay curious and learn as much as you can. Keep asking questions. They're so much more important than answers. And I'm going to turn it over to Tanika.
And so we just want to take the time to really thank Uli and everyone else at the Butterfly House that took time to be with us. And we'd also like to thank our Durham Public Durham Public Schools partners, so Dr. Terrigan and Willow, that have been really helpful for us. And most importantly, we'd like to thank Spring Valley and Parkwood classes for being with us today. It has been totally awesome. All of you asked amazing questions.
Yeah, thank you again, everyone. I want to give you a preview for where we're going next week. So next week, we're going to be meeting the amazing folks at the Triangle Land Conservancy. So they're a group that works to protect the land that we need to support clean water and healthy habitats in our community around Durham, as well as surrounding areas in the Triangle. Land conservation also offers opportunities for us all to connect from and benefit from the nature around us. And we're going to learn about some of the wonderful places that you can visit and engage with the history and beauty of the nature that we have right here in Durham and the surrounding areas in the Triangle. So I can't wait to see you there next week. That'll be our 30th episode. I'm so excited, and thank you all for joining us for another Field Trip Friday. We'll see you next week. Take care, friends.